In this Webflow tutorial, I'll teach you everything you need to know about Webflow components, what is properties, and what is variants. I think component is super powerful. I've been a Webflow developer for over 7 years now, and I've only started to take it serious. So I want to show you guys what it's capable of. So firstly, in your Webflow site, perhaps you have many different sections that are reused throughout the page. For example, the classic example being the navbar right here. You can see this example navbar. It's in a component because it's in green, and we can go ahead and hit components by hitting this button right here, components, and that shows all the components. And even if you put your mouse over it, it shows you that these specific sections are in components. And you'll notice inside, sometimes it says 7 instances, which just means this is being used 7 times throughout the page. Of course, we'll get into it. So think of components as reusable sections. And the most easy way to think about it is a navbar and a footer, because a navbar and a footer is all the same throughout every single pages. But there's small variations that we can do within components that make it even more powerful, starting with properties. So let's go into this example website right here, MJD projects. And you can see right now I have this navbar right here that I've built. It's inside a page wrapper. It's right here. And you can see right now, this is just a static block. So this is just a static element. So obviously the mistake here is actually copying this right here, which will copy everything inside of it, and then going to, let's say, a different page like the about page, and then literally pasting it like this. This is the ultimate noob mistake. Can you guys guess why? Well, the reason why is because these two are static elements. They're not component. They're not tied together. So let's just say, for example, if the client wants to change the name about to our story, like so, while this changes in this specific page right here, the about page, if we go back to the home page right here, it doesn't change. So you can already see there's a massive problem regarding scalability and editability. So instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually right-click this specific div block right here that has all my navbar components. I'm going to right-click it and hit Create Component. We then want to give it a name. So I'll just call it like navbar 2026. And I'll go ahead and hit Create. And you'll notice that has created that component right now. And now if I copy this specific component, Command C, and go back to the About page and actually just delete this specific previous navbar and just paste it in, you'll notice it's in a green text. So if I actually double click it, and now if I change About to, let's just say, our story, and go ahead and go back to the home page, you'll notice it also changed in the home page. So that's one fantastic way, but components can do much more than that. Let's go ahead and take a look at another example. In this case, there's this CTA section that sits above the footer, which should probably be a component as well. That just says ready to get started, and then a short description and maybe a button text. So we can go ahead and select the main parent div right here. We can go ahead and right click it and hit Create Component. And you'll notice we can give it a name. So we'll call it like CTA component LOL. I put LOL because we have to have fun on YouTube. And then right here, there is a checkbox that is very important that automatically is ticked. So if I untick this, we can go ahead and hit Create. But if I tick this, which is automatic, we can go ahead and hit this arrow, which is a drop down. And this tells you that it's going to create this component, but it's going to almost create dynamic text. It's going to create a dynamic title where it says ready to get started. It's going to create a dynamic text 1, which is this paragraph text right here. Let's discuss your project, etc. It's going to create a dynamic link, so URL link in the button, as well as a dynamic text button link. This is very important. And the reality is Webflow actually had this ability since almost day 1. So normally I untick this, but I'm going to go and explain what happens when you tick it. But before I tick it, I'm going to untick it just to show you the manual way to do this. So if I hit Create right now, you'll notice I created this component, and it's called CTA component lol. I can go ahead and head over to the About page perhaps and just add it to the bottom of the page. We could copy and paste that component, or we can go ahead and hit components right here, and you'll notice we created the CTA component LOL right here. It says 1 instance because it's being used in the home page. We go ahead and click it, and you'll notice it's added it right here. And like I showed you with the navbar, because we didn't create any properties, if I was to double click this and double click ready to get started to say ready not to get started, you'll notice if I click out of it and go back to the home page, surprise, or no surprise, it changed every single page. But the cool thing about components is we can go ahead and create unique text, but keeping the layout. So in order to do this, I'm going to go ahead and just double click into the component. And you'll notice enter the component because it literally says CTA component lol. That's what we called it, with a back button right here. And if we go ahead and click this text right here, on the right hand side, underneath the settings tab, so by default it's style right here, but if we hit settings, right here, we can go ahead and hit this plus button right here, and it's indicated in purple, almost like CMS, but it's not really CMS, so you don't need a CMS plan to do this, but this is suggesting dynamic content. Very, very, very cool stuff. So for example, we can go ahead and hit this purple button in visibility, because with this selected, we can put this to hidden, which will hide it, or visible to show it. So if we go ahead and hit this purple button, we can go ahead and create a new switch property, and we can go ahead and rename it to, let's just say, visible H1 text, for example. And we can go ahead and put the default to be visible, and we hit create, and we just literally created something called a property. Next thing we can do is we can go ahead and edit the text. So we hit this purple button right here, and we can go ahead and hit new text property, and we can go ahead and just call this, CTA title perhaps. And we can go ahead and hit create, and that's created that specific field inside the component. Super, super powerful stuff. You'll also notice for advanced people, you can even change the tag, like the heading 1, heading 2, heading 3 for SEO benefits. This is just something to open your mind. And if we go ahead and hit this paragraph text, for example, and we hit plus, you'll notice there's something else besides new text property. It's called create conditional. So you can also tie specific elements based on a condition, which we won't cover in this tutorial, but it just shows you it's very, very dynamic. This is really powerful stuff. And the reason why it's powerful is because you give clients a lot of flexibility without them having to be a developer and double clicking and all this like really, really complicated UI. So now that we've just created this specific H2, we created 2 different properties. One is for visibility, so the user can actually just hide it like so. And you'll notice it keeps that same Webflow layout where like it has this blue. Like you can see this text is highlighted blue, which means it's overridden the style, like a CSS. Look at my CSS tutorial in the past. But we can go ahead and hold Option and click into it, and that moves it back to the default, which is visible. You'll notice below that is the CTA title, which by default is ready not to get started. But we can go ahead and change it to ready to party and then question mark. You'll notice it's in blue because this is only applying to this specific page. So if we go back into the about page, you'll notice if I go back to that specific component, it literally still has the default text, which is ready not to get started. So we can actually use the components throughout each of the page, keep the exact same layout, but have dynamic text to change it up. So for example, in the home page, you'll say ready to get started with your project. In the about page, it might say something like want to learn more about us. You know what I mean? And we can even change the button instead of saying inquire now to be like, have a coffee on us or something like that, So very powerful stuff. You'll notice I can hide this if I don't want this on this page. And I can even change the CTA title if it's visible. Very, very cool stuff. So that is components and properties in a nutshell. Of course, if I go ahead and go into a different section, let's say this about section, which is very beautifully built, I can go ahead and right click it, hit create component, and you'll notice again, Webflow has automatically determined 15 properties. If you put your mouse over it, this is the heading, this is the supporting paragraph text. Of course, you might want to relabel it to be like supporting P text. It's good to name your stuff like classes. And you see, this is image 1, this is image 2, this is the text, which is the stat at the very bottom, etc. So if we go ahead and just hit create and just do what Webflow suggests, you notice in this specific component that I created on the right-hand side, this is how the client can easily edit things. For example, if they want to change this title right here, they can just be like, Big Chungus is OP. If they want to change the supporting paragraph text, they can do that. If they want to change an image, they can go ahead and just hit replace image and go ahead and just change a different image. And we've already built the image in a certain aspect ratio, so it wouldn't break. I'd made a tutorial about that. Check it out on my channel. But super cool stuff. Obviously, these aren't labeled correctly, but these are the stats. Right now it says 20 plus, but we might want to say 200 plus. And you can see it literally just changed. And again, because this is a component, we can copy this and use it into a different page and change different content. So I hope you guys really understand this. It's super powerful stuff, something that Webflow had since day one, but I never understood it. Another thing that Webflow recently did is if we click into the specific component by double clicking it, you'll notice at the very bottom, it says changing this component will modify one instance. If we hit open component right here, Webflow has this really cool view where you can actually add different variations. So this is almost like a Figma board. And I bet you some people don't even know this is a thing, but perhaps an easier way to show you what you could do with this is actually clicking into the navbar component instead. And then right here, we'll go ahead and hit open component. And then right here, we can create different variations of the navbar. An easy example of this is just changing the background color. So we'll go ahead and hit variant right here, press this plus, and you'll notice we can give it a name. It's always good to give it a name. I'll just call it brown BG navbar. And then right here, we can go ahead and select that specific div block as we normally would. We can go ahead and hit style right here. You'll notice I'm selecting this layer right here, home navbar. If I just open up my navigator right here, you'll notice exact same thing. I'm selecting this, and you'll notice it has this green tag right here. So we don't need to apply combo classes. You know, if you guys are already confused, this is a bit technical. This is, I guess, for people who already understand the premise of Webflow, which is box model, but more importantly, CSS classes, which I've already made a tutorial, so check that out on my channel. But we do not need to add a combo class. We can literally just change the background color. For example, right now it's set to transparent, but if we change it to this one right here, secondary, this is like brown, right? And you notice it didn't change this base specific background color, even though it has the exact same class, because we have this green tag right here. So we can go ahead and hit back right now, and you'll notice in the navbar, if we click into it, it has variant in a drop down. And right now it has base, and if we hit the drop down, we literally just created one called brown BG navbar. So go ahead and click that, and you'll notice that literally changed the navbar to be brown. And if I go back to the home page, question for you guys, did it change? No, it didn't, because it is a variant. So you can see it's always kept the exact same. So I really hope this video cleared things up. Again, I've been using Webflow for 7 years. I knew this was a thing. Variant wasn't a thing, but I knew component was a thing, and I didn't really know how to use it until now. So hope it really cleared things up. Again, in a high-level summary, once you build something in Webflow, because it's all, you know, boxes and div blocks, you can go ahead and right-click it and create component. This would essentially allow you to reuse what you've just created. And then you can go ahead and create properties for everything inside the component, should you wish, such as changing the text, such as changing the button URL or changing the images. So it's very easy for the client to just hit this green box and just change everything on the right-hand side in properties. And you can also create variants, base, brown, BG. Of course, we just changed the background color, but we can do more. We can change the width, we can change the height, we can change different stylings. The possibilities are really endless. And again, you guys got to remember, we're developers, so we see all this. But you'll notice after the retirement of the legacy editor, which I made a tutorial on, clients are not going to go in here and worry about the classes and all this random stuff and create a new CSS class. They'll most likely be in something called a preview role inside something like a marketer. So this is literally what they see. They can't really see the style panel. So when you click into a specific navbar right here, you'll notice this is what we're restricting the client to do. So that's the fantastic thing about components, is we can literally force the client what to do and what not to do. And essentially that's it. So they can't break the site. And that's why it's very important to building components nowadays, especially after the retirement of the legacy editor. But my name is Derek Su. I hope this video really, really helped you guys. If it did, please give it a thumbs up. It really helps me out. Otherwise, just want to let you guys know that I'm a Sydney-based Webflow developer and web designer. I also have many free Webflow tutorials on my YouTube channel, so just check it out, all for free. And for those who are serious about learning Webflow, I have a Webflow course as well as a freelance course. Links in the description. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one. May peace be with you.